So in the previous video we looked at creating a size for our graphics window. We stopped the user from being able to change that size, and we set the background colour to a random colour of the computer's choosing. So we're now going to look at how we can apply some of our old knowledge of loops and things to the graphics window to do some quite powerful things. So in here I'm going to go and say, well, I'd like you just to keep changing the background colour. So how do we do, if we want to do something forever? Well, we just use a while loop. While 1 equals 1, like we've done before. We need to indent this so it's part of the while loop. Graphics window dot background colour equals a random colour, and then we just end our while loop, which is really nice and simple, but it just means that we constantly change the background colour. Bearing in mind this is going to flash a lot now, so we're going to get a flashing of lots and lots and lots of different background colours, which is pretty painful to the eyes. And sure enough, that's pretty irritating. So to make it slightly less irritating, I'm going to make it slow down and just do that a little bit slower. So I'm going to go and say, let's go and put a delay in here. Now the delay is in a section we've not looked at before. It's in the program section, and you can say program dot delay, and as it tells us over here, we give it a delay in milliseconds. Now for your reference, 1000 milliseconds is a second, so I'm just going to say every second for now by typing in 1000, and if we run it again we find it's slightly less irritating than it was before, as it slowly changes the background colour. Now this is fine, but we're going to now look at seeing whether we can maybe create that circle again and maybe see if we can use a while loop to animate that in some ways. But before we go that far, I'd like to switch this while loop. Maybe I just want to change the colour 10 times, so just a little reminder here. Rather than have a while loop, because I know how many times I want to do it, I'm going to say make a for loop. So I'm going to say for I equals 1 to, let's say I want to do it 10 times. For I equals 1 to 10, remembering I is just a variable that I've created within this for loop, so when I type it here that's it's being created, and it just changes the value of I between 1 and 10 as it loops through. So we could call it anything, for example, we could just call it time, how many times through the loop it is. We could call it anything you really wanted to. I'm going to stick with I for now. However, as I've said before, using variable names that aren't very clear can lead to a lot of issues. In this case, because it's doing something so simple, we're just saying we want to do something 10 times, using an I is normally accepted. So this will just change the background colour 10 times. Oh, I forgot to change my end while for end for, because we're no longer doing a while loop in here. If we run that again now, hopefully we just change that background colour just those 10 times. So for loops can be quite useful. We're going to now look at seeing if we can, rather than change the background colour each time, we're going to see if we can draw some circles. So I'm going to go to graphics window dot background colour and just take it out of our for loop, just because I don't want it to be irritatingly changing the background colour. And instead I'm going to tell it to draw us a circle, in fact fill a circle. So graphics window dot fill, and I'd like to fill an ellipse, and I would like to plot the x position at 0, y position at 0. I'm going to plot the size of it to be 150 by 150, so it's a circle as opposed to an ellipse, and delay. So it's actually going to just draw that circle, wait a second, draw the circle again, wait a second, draw the circle again, wait a second. So it's just constantly redrawing the circle over and over again, which isn't very interesting. So instead, why don't we start changing the location of where this circle's being drawn? To do that, I mean, I could just switch out and have I in here. So now, because we changed the x position to be drawing a circle with the x position of I, so I equals 1 to start with, so our first circle is drawn at x1, just 1 pixel across the screen. The next one will be drawn at 2, so 2 pixels across the screen, so they're going to be very, very close to each other. I'm going to speed it up slightly by just making it draw a circle every 1/10 of a second, and if we run that now, we see some circles drawn very close to each other, and you might be able to see it's just stretched out a little bit. The thing that's making this hard to see is that we can't see the different circles because they're all the same colour. So instead I'm just going to change the brush colour each time we draw a circle. So graphicswindow.brushColor equals graphicswindow.getRandomColor. And if we run that one more time, we can see the different circles being created and different colours, only 1 pixel apart, which is why we can't see them very clearly. We could make them more than 1 pixel apart. We could say I times by, I don't know, 30. So there'll be 30 pixels apart, because this will, in the first instance, will equal 1 times 30, and then 2 times 30, so it'll be in 60, and then 3 times 30 at 90, and we just move those circles slightly further apart. So you can see how we can start to manipulate code to do some quite cool things. If I wanted to make the circles go all the way across, well, I could just say, well, just do that, I don't know, let's say 60 times. And we can see our circles going to be plotted across the screen and onwards beyond where we can see even. So we can use for loops, and of course if I wanted something to happen forever, we could change this back to a while loop. For now, I'm going to give you a different idea. Rather than just using I, and bear in mind, before I do actually, that we could use I in the y coordinate as well, so I times 10, and this will of course move not only to the right now, but also down. So as well as doing this, we could actually set some new variables for the x and the y position. Now I could just call these variables x and y. The downside to that is it's the x position of what? The graphics window? Or I don't know. So instead I'm going to call it circ for circle x. Circle's x position equals, well, we will start it at 0, and the circle's y position I'm going to set equal to 0 as well. And now I can say that I'd like this to be drawn at circ x and the y position to be drawn at circ y. This now means that whatever the value of these variables are as we go through this for loop, they will be drawn. Now, of course, in this for loop, they never change their value. We set them to be equal to 0 up here, and we draw the circle at their current locations, at their current values, but we don't actually change them. So when we do run this, we just find ourselves drawing circles over the top of the same circle we just drew, because we haven't changed the location of those circles. So instead, why don't we look at how we can change them? Why don't we say that we want to add to circle each time? So I could say circle x equals whatever circle x did equal, but we're just going to say it's going to be that plus 50. So again, let's say the x position starts at 0, is now going to be 0 plus 50, so it would be 50, and then we change the value of circle x to be that. And then when we loop around the next time, it is 50, so we say 50 add 50 is 100, and now circle x equals 100. And again, this gives us the same movement of a circle moving horizontally to the right across the screen. Just a slightly different approach to it. And again, we could do this exact same thing with our y position. So I'm going to say change circle y. And maybe we'll change y by, oh no, we'll change x by 25. So we'll see it going a bit steeper than it is going across. And if we run that, you should see it coming down about like that. There we go. instead of that, what if we wanted to make a screensaver where the circles were plotted randomly all around the screen? So we're going to set the circle's x position to be a random number each time. So I could say circle x equals math dot get random number. So this is a new thing that we've not looked at before. And so it's just within maths, like we have graphics window that we have different tools inside. In maths we can get the random number. Now get random number, as it tells us up here, gets a random number between 1 and the specified max number. So max number is the maximum number it can go up to. Bearing in mind our graphics window height is between 800 and 1500, the x position really can only go as far as 1500 or it's going to be off the screen. And in fact, if it did draw at 1500, it would be just off the screen because of course our circle, if we look at this as being our circle, is going to be drawn at the top left corner, which means if this is the edge of our screen, it's going to be drawn just off to the right of it. But that's okay. And we'll do a similar idea for circle Y, and we'll set that to be equal to 800. And if we run that now, we get 60 random circles being drawn over our graphics window, which is a perfectly good screensaver. Doesn't run forever, so how are we going to fix that? Well, we could just say, rather than have a for loop doing it 60 times, as we've said before, you can use a while loop to do something forever. While 1 equals 1, and of course we could be while 3 equals 3, anything that's always going to be true. And if we run that now, and maybe we'll have to make it happen even faster. Oh, we've still got our end4, made that mistake earlier. So let's just change that end4 for end while. Run that again. And we're getting to a screensaver that could easily be found on any operating system that you're using. It runs quite slowly on my computer because I'm running Windows on a Mac, so I'm running 2 operating systems at once. So, but you can see as a concept it draws quite nicely. If I was going to improve it a bit further, of course the shapes can only be drawn at the closest point is here, so I might actually make them draw slightly off the screen to make it more filling around these 2 edges here. But as a whole, I think it makes for a pretty impressive screensaver.